Kakegurui is an extremely trashy anime, and I think that it's been appreciated by some for its high-octane plot and ridiculously over-the-top characters, and dismissed by others for its lazily thought-out games and over-reliance on a kind of juvenile edginess. But I believe there's a very interesting idea at its core, which is a kind of absurdist exploration of how exploitative systems operate and how those systems ensure that the people living within them will continue to perpetuate the very institutions that exploit them. Yeah, so let's get into it. Kakegurui tells the story of Hyakao Private Academy, an elite school housing the children of Japan's most wealthy and influential people. However, the student hierarchy in this school is not determined by academic performance, but by gambling. Students are ranked by their monetary contributions to the student council, which fuels an intricate gambling system. And those who win earn popularity, prestige, and connections, while those who lose and fall into debt become known as house pets, who are basically slaves. And our main character, Yumiko, is a newly arrived transfer student at the academy and compulsive gambler who instantly dominates the games and begins to disrupt the hierarchy of the school. So we have a money-based system where the people at the top do everything in their power to maintain the status quo, while the people at the bottom are stripped of all agency and given only one opportunity to escape their situation, which is to gamble even more, thus risking gaining even more debt. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to extrapolate some kind of metaphor here. Now, if you want an anime that uses ridiculously intense gambling as a social critique of the disenfranchised workers of a capitalist system, Kaiji is definitely a much better show, with much better games. To be honest, the games are actually the weakest aspect of Kakegurui, but hey, what can I say? I'm a sucker for women who get off on extreme gambling. That's just my thing. Which leads me to my next point. Sexual gratification from gambling. What's that all about? Well, an important dimension of this anime is the sexualization of the gambling spirit, which I see as a representation of how this exploitative system plays on our base nature. Whether it's a guy almost raping Yumiko because she's a house pet, or this girl from the student council who collects the nails of those she beats, or Mary in the beginning who uses Ryota as a chair. All of this is ridiculously exaggerated, but it serves to accentuate how this system exploits the worst aspects of human nature and creates an environment where those behaviors are not only allowed to exist, but actually thrive. And Kakegurui also delves deeper into the psychology of gambling addiction. The excitement that comes from gambling can be the entirety of its appeal, not just the potential for monetary gain. The imminent anticipation of immense loss or reward is a big adrenaline hit. It's the financial equivalent of skydiving. And counterintuitively, neurological studies have shown that for gambling addicts, losing money can actually trigger a release of dopamine almost to the same degree as winning does. And as a result, for these kinds of gamblers, losing just provokes incentive to continue playing, rather than the disappointment and frustration that would cause most people to simply walk away, which is why gambling can be such a powerful tool of exploitation. The character of Midari is the perfect example of this. She quite literally gets off on playing Russian roulette and begs Yumiko to play with her because no one else is crazy enough to do it. She is a character who is addicted, not to the idea of monetary gain, but to the biological orgasmic response she has to gambling, and specifically the potential of loss. She embodies the gambling addict taken to the most masochistic extreme, and she is to be seen as a logical byproduct of this kind of system, a system built around risk, trading in it and managing it. It's only natural that this kind of system would create people who fetishize risk in this way, and the people at the top feed on this irrationality. The school council president, Karari, who basically serves as the main antagonist of the series, even has a speech on the irrationality of gambling. because those in power understand how this works and how to use it to their advantage. But the reason why this is so effective is because our brains aren't wired to perceive gambling as an irrational risk, but as an opportunity. But beyond the psychological criticisms of how exploitative capitalistic systems might affect those who are subject to it, Kakegurui also throws a few satirical jabs at certain socio-cultural features of modern societies. Like the idol character, for example, another member of the student council who Yumiko goes up against in season 1. A character who hides her real disdain for her fans in order to further herself in the world and garner popularity, even putting on idol concerts at the academy. She's representative of the superficiality of the celebrity, a human product of the capitalist system. But another interesting idea that pops up in the show is the life plan, which is offered by the student council to certain students who are so far in debt that there's no way they'll ever be able to repay it during their time at the school. The life plan will dictate your entire future. What type of person you'll marry, how many kids you'll have, how much money you'll make, and how you will repay your debt. This can be taken as a sly critique of the social trajectories that this kind of society sets out for its people according to their economic class, and the impossibility of true social mobility when constrained by the looming shadow of immense debt and the major life-changing decisions we're forced into making at a young age. Yumiko then appears as the chaotic agent who breaks the system. She isn't interested in money or power, she plays for the love of gambling itself. She's a monster that could only exist and thrive in this capitalistic, exploitative system. She's a product of that world. But unlike Midari, who succumbs to an almost chemical dependence on the mechanics of this world, specifically the idea of loss, Yumiko is more akin to a super predator that could have only evolved in such an environment and is the perfect embodiment of every trait that allows one to dominate this kind of ecosystem. And she also encourages other people to break free of the system, like in episode 5 with this girl Nanami, another house pet who helps the rapist guy Jun in a game of Indian poker against Yumiko and Mary. But Jun is a big bully, and Yumiko manages to turn Nanami against him, and so she liberates herself from his grasp. Or in episode 10, when Yumiko pushes Itsuki to emancipate herself from the control of the student council. These moments are expressions of a sudden realization of agency. These characters who have been subjects to the system for so long are now suddenly offered an opportunity to make a decision for themselves. This results in an intense state of confusion where the character experiences immense pressure. Should they reject this system that they've been a part of for so long at the risk of having their entire lives ruined, or should they just continue on as before, ignoring their own personal desires and freedom? It's just another gamble. And so these over-the-top facial expressions evoke not only the cruelty and sadism that this kind of system elicits from people, but also the kind of mental break that occurs when these characters manage to break free of the constraints and limitations of the system. And this is the strange irony of Yumiko's character, because she embodies both of these expressions. The compulsive gambler reliant on this system for her own gratification, but also the breaker of chains, so to speak, the hero who liberates the disenfranchised and exploited members of society. She is someone who can't derive true pleasure from anything other than this kind of system, but is simultaneously the one who will destroy it. Something capitalism will destroy itself and is ultimately self-defeating. I don't know, there's something deep in there somewhere, you figure it out. So, in short, if you want to really enjoy Kakegurui, an anime that hasn't been relevant for about 3 years now, I think you should watch it not as an intricate gambling anime that will keep you on the edge of your seat with its well thought out games, but as a ridiculous, absurdist critique of the psychological effects of a capitalist society. And realize that when you see these ridiculously over-the-top, edgy faces, that they might not be as far from reality as you think.